Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's Counselor Connect session. We are excited to have Lydia McNeely with us, and Lydia will probably introduce herself here in the next slide, but she is formerly a counselor, a director, and now she is working with Hatching Results. So we're really excited that she's going to be sharing on this topic today. We are going to be talking about vertical alignment in your K-12 school counseling program. So, Lydia, if you want to go ahead and take it away, that would be great. I will be adding the slide deck link into the chat. So, if you do want to follow along with slides, you'll be able to do that. I'll add that here in just a second.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As oh, whoops, apparently, apparently my sharing, Amanda, I might ask you to share.
Are your slides not going, Lydia?
They're
Oh,
not going. Can you
okay.
share them now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I
Yep.
apologize.
No, that's fine. Let me pull it up. I did just link the slides into the chat so people can follow along that way. Okay. All right.
Thank
Everybody, you
you.
see my slide now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. As Amanda mentioned, my name is Lydia McNeely. I'm a lead professional learning specialist with Hatching Results. Before that, I'm still a licensed professional school counselor. I'm still licensed, and I'm also a licensed district administrator. I worked for School City Hammond as a middle school counselor, and then I became lead school counselor, and then I became the district coordinator over college and career, over the school counseling department, and also college and career readiness. I am the Indiana School Counselor of the Year from 2024. I have served as an ASCA lead ramp reviewer, and I also currently serve as the ISCA assistant chair of the board. Um, on the next slide. So I'm just really excited to be here and talk to you about vertical alignment. So today we're just going to talk about vertical alignment in school counseling programs. Really want to talk to you about tips to how to coordinate with team members, not just if you're a school counselor that works by themselves. Definitely want to make sure that we're coordinating across the district, but also school counselors in different buildings. We want to make sure that we're coordinating our program and tailoring it to address the needs of our students. And so every time that I start any type of PD, I always want to go back to our ASCA professional competencies. So when we're talking about like our objectives today do align with our national motto and the competencies that we have as school counselors. And so I'm using M3, which is every student should graduate from high school prepared for their post-secondary opportunities. It's not specific as to what the opportunities have to be, so any opportunities that they want for themselves. And then school counseling programs promote and enhance student academic, career, and social emotional outcomes. So vertical alignment, when I would think about vertical alignment initially, I always thought about teachers. I think that typically when we think about vertical alignment, we're thinking about teachers and how they transition students, not necessarily thinking about school counselors, like how do we do that as part of a comprehensive school counseling program. But when I started thinking about it and I just became more aware of what we were trying to build, it was vertical alignment without we were doing it without realizing we were doing it. We didn't have a name to it. Then it took some time to actually say, okay, this is part of a data-informed comprehensive school counseling. We have differentiated lessons, and it's sequential and it transitions for throughout the years of the student from elementary, middle to high. So again, we were doing it without really realizing we were doing it, but once we were aware of it, then we were intentional to make sure that we were building and that there were no uh, just gaps in what we were in what we were providing to our students. So we're thinking about vertical alignment in school counseling. We want to make sure that we're thinking about the interventions that match students' stages. So we wouldn't want to, when if I'm talking about if I'm doing a restorative circle right in middle school, I would have wanted to talk to students before that, or at least if they're coming into middle school, we want to make sure that the counselors in elementary school had conversations about like it starts younger with like good touch, bad touch, but then also like, what how we would work to behave in a classroom, or what that looks like in elementary versus middle and high. Um, and then it's also curriculum mapping. And again, that's another thing that when I thought about curriculum mapping, I would always think of that as um, something for teachers. When I was in like curriculum meetings and we were talking about curriculum maps, I always thought again of, okay, this is not related to me, this is not pertaining to me, why am I here? Or what am I going to contribute to the conversation? There are a lot of times when I was in the district and we would have curriculum meetings, and I was actually in the curriculum team when I became a district lead. I was on the curriculum team, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to practice? What am I going to talk about? I have nothing to say, without really thinking, okay, well, school counselors have curriculum, right? We have a curriculum, and we are working together, hopefully, to map it out. And we weren't doing that at the time, using those words, but it was something that we were doing in practice. It was just kind of, again, naming it and putting it all together. It is a really great opportunity for you to work with school counselors. I am fortunate right now that I do work with school counselors in a lot of different locations. And one thing I do notice is a lot of times when I'm meeting with counselors, it's the first time they're meeting as a district. They're not meeting typically with one another. So elementary isn't meeting with high, elementary isn't meeting necessarily with middle. So it's a really great time if we were intentional with these meetings for us to really work together to figure out, okay, as a middle school counselor, what's something I wish my students walked in with? Like, what's some information that I wish that they were prepared for as they enter middle school? Then as a high school counselor, like, you know what? It's important for them to know what a GPA is before they get to me, right? It's important for them to understand um, what that would look like, or what classes look like, or uh, the repercussions of failing in a classroom. Like, it would be important for them to know that before they walk through our doors. So having that conversation and just opening that dialogue, it does ensure like the smooth transition for students. And then it's also data driven, and you're ensuring that you're intentional with the services that you're providing to students, and ensuring that it's actually addressing a need that the students have. And so you want to make sure it's important because you want improved outcomes, right? You want to make sure that when we came back from COVID, I was in the middle school building, and one of the concerns was always like, the interactions, and they weren't positive interactions with students, right? Um, Students kind of forgot, and a lot of people forgot, how to be around one another and be positive, and in positive relationships. And so right away, if we start that in and lay that foundation in elementary, and I cannot speak to how important elementary school counselors are in this equation, because they're laying the foundation of how we progress, right? And how our students progress. So laying that foundation and equipping the students with what they need to manage academic and social difficulties. And in early intervention, you're working earlier on identifying issues that students are having. And then transition support. We're always when students are going from elementary to middle school, that's a huge transition. And if we, again, that middle school counselor was aware of the concerns that the elementaries were having, they would be able to tailor their lessons, like their tier one lessons that are going to affect all students, to be able to tier that right away and be able to better prepare. So if I met with my school counselors, like right now is April, right? So as I'm preparing to end the year, but I'm also meeting with the elementary counselors. These are the concerns that my fifth grade students had. So that way in sixth grade, or I'm sorry, in middle school, then the middle school counselor already is aware of these concerns and can start conducting tier one lessons as soon as school starts in August, to be able to address the needs that you already know that are going to happen with your students. So again, just being intentional with the work that we're doing, and then collaborating with other members of the school community as well. So, I did it's important for me, like, because the college and career hat always goes on. So, well, the example that I'm gonna have, in a little bit is really gonna be, a college and career readiness example, and how it would go through, vertical alignment, would work through all the tiers and all the grade levels. But, the graduation requirements we know have changed, and the role of the school counselor is important as ever. And so, like, the next couple of slides are slides that are actually from a previous Counselor Connect, or Keep Indiana Learning, that happened, a few months ago when the rollout was going on, um, with the IDOE. And so this is just, you can go to the next slide, man, I'm sorry. Um, these are just some of the data. So, like, are the Indiana diploma we know has changed, right? One of the biggest concerns is that fewer Indiana students are enrolling in higher education, fewer are graduating. You're looking at like 53%. I think it's stable. The last 2 years have been stable at 53%. But what people are realizing is that our students are taking longer once they enroll in school. They're not really prepared, and so that's, I guess, I can't speak for why they changed the diploma, but that was one of the reasons why that was given, right? That students aren't prepared, right? Go to the next slide. And if we break it down, because I'm always very equity focused, right? So we break it down by subgroup. Um, what's interesting is 21st century scholars like knock it out of the park. Like 21st century scholars, if and that's what the like those wraparound services that 21st century scholars receive as first gen. I myself am a first gen. Those wraparound services, that TRIO programs, programs like that provided students. That support they give them in school, you can see like 81% that college going rate for 21st century scholars. But if you're looking at the subgroups, like if you were low income across the board, no matter the background, you're at 30%. Um, Latina is 44, Black 45, White 55. So I mean, there is a there is a discrepancy in the numbers, right? Um, as far as students who are going to school. So I think that as a school counselor, when we are being intentional and really guiding our program and aligning it, right, vertically aligning it, then we're able to address the needs of these students. So that way they'll be more prepared when they go on to whether it's college or whatever post-secondary opportunities that they want. But we want to make sure that they're prepared for those spaces. Okay. And again, these are just things that when I was looking at when I was preparing for this, I was kind of looking at the IDOE website, kind of thinking about the graduation requirements. Um, and really talking about like 58% of Indiana jobs require training beyond high school. And when I see that, like I'm thinking about school counseling, right? I'm thinking about college and career readiness. I have that hat too, right? So I'm thinking about that and I'm thinking like, okay, well, how can school counselors better prepare students for those opportunities, right? Or 64% of Indiana students earn that college credit, earn those dual credit courses through Ivy Tech or through Vincennes. So if they're doing that, what can we do as school counselors again to support them in that? Next slide. And then also, like, again, they just kind of like when I was thinking about vertical alignment, I'm thinking about like how to kind of talk to you about this today. I was thinking about this as well because, again, saying 77% of students are disqualified because they didn't meet aptitude, medical fit. Again, maybe medical fitness. Okay, I could say the school counselors really, we're not going to have a direct hand in that, but like character standards, aptitude, like maybe there are things that we can do to help ensure that our students are more prepared, not prepared and not be disqualified, right? When they're looking to enlist. Next slide. So when we're thinking about the diploma changes, it's important to when I saw that, right, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, as school counselors and we're thinking about student success and we're thinking about graduation rates and preparing them for post-secondary opportunities, like this is our jam, right? This is what we do as school counselors. And we're thinking about vertical alignment starting early because if we start having these conversations in middle school, even in middle school, right? I mean, middle school is starting earlier, but if we're having these conversations, certainly high school is really too late, right? But if we're intentional about having these conversations in middle school, and even more so starting to have those and giving students the opportunities to take a look at what that would look like earlier on and scaffolding and having a structured approach, then that's going to be more supportive of students at the end. So that's what vertical alignment is going to do is if you're having the structured approach, you're starting early. So that way, as you're looking at graduation, you're thinking about those improved outcomes where they're going to have a well-informed plan, whether it's a major, college major or trade or another path. Um, Go ahead to the next slide. So it's important. Like I want to ensure that what I'm talking about right now, again, I'm going to talk about a college and career example, but as school counselors, we work for college, we work under college and career, social, emotional, and academic. So these are things that you can scaffold again your program to. You could tier it as well. So again, just because my example was one, it doesn't mean that we're not able to do it for all. It was just an example that when I was looking at the graduation diploma, and it just kind of resonated with me. So that's why I chose that one to give it as an example. Um, But as you're building a program, I think it's really important, and again, as I'm working, I'm kind of using, my example of being at the district level in Hammond, but also, working with counselors at Hatching Results. Um, Really aligning your school counseling program to what your district priorities are so important, and it gives you like, I cannot speak to this enough. The reason I was able to probably get a district lead position in Hammond was because of really working with my building principal and finding out what the concerns were and what his improvement plan looked like and how we can support as school counselors. So again, being intentional with the work, if you're looking at, and I'll have an example where it kind of speaks to this as a graduation change, a graduation rate, but how can we change that at all levels, right? So just being intentional with the work that we're doing and really working with your administrators to kind of get their perspective about like what's important and what, what is their vision for the school, and then really working with your school counselors across the district. So like a quick example is in elementary school, students might learn basic goal setting, right? In middle school, they're exploring interests and they're starting to think about career paths. And then, in high school, they're crafting resumes, they're doing workshops, and they're making real decisions. So it's again scaffolded, it's building on it. And then on top of that, you're helping with transitions because you want to make sure that they're prepared when they're moving into different buildings. And also you're working together to make sure that if you covered this, I can build on it and not just do it again, but build on it. So for seventh grade, it might look different than eighth grade. Eighth grade might have, just when it's like college and career, seventh grade might be more exploratory. Eighth grade might be more hands-on when you're visiting places and things like that. So that's when I'm speaking of transitions, like just making sure that we're not repetitive, and then just making sure that again we're working together to ensure that there's equal voice for the school counselors. I think a lot of times we're always thinking about high school counselors. But again, it's really important to bridge that gap with middle and elementary school counselors because we're all in this together to serve students. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a college and career readiness example. Um, I love it. So with Hatching Results, we use a lot of Bitmojis. So I just throw my Bitmoji in there, but throw my little things in there. So use my Bitmoji. But I am using the Hatching Results. So we as school counselors, not Hatching Results, but as school counselors, we work in academic, college and career readiness and social emotional domains. So we're planning vertical alignment and we're planning a scope and sequence. We want to make sure that we are working with students again, just in all the domains across all the tiers. And so I know Amanda gave you the links to that. So that will have like the link to the conceptual diagram information from Hatch Results of where that actually is coming from. Yeah. I think there's resources at the end too, but we can go to the next slide. But so when I'm thinking about like tier one, right? So tier one is going to be all students. So this is all students, and as Dr. Hatch um does say, like in a lot of our trainings, like all student in your in that grade level, whether like if they're breathing, right? So this is students who um are special education students, our ELL students. Every student would receive like tier one support, right? Tier one is going to be including everybody. And it also means like if there is a class that's out, a class at a field trip, how we're doing as school counselors being intentional of inviting that student or having a presentation in that classroom if we missed it, right? Um, but we're thinking about college and career readiness. Elementary students are going to want to be exploring. They're going to want to be dreaming. They're going to want to be drawing. At one of our schools in Hammond, the counselor would have like, during college go week, she'd have like pictures of different professions and having students like really color and just kind of like think about what that would look like. But it's like them dreaming, right? Them thinking. You want them to like have all these aspirations. You want to help guide them, right? You wanna help let them see themselves in these spaces, right? And it's engagement, it's bringing in career speakers, it's doing all that at a young age. Doing that culture and climate, is also a part of that, and family engagement, because we wanna make sure, um, that our families are, uh, just aware of, like, that we're providing this for our students. We want to make sure that, okay, you know what, they're doing a college and career lesson. A lot of our families might be first generation. We want to let them know that, we're talking to your student about, what this would look like, what college looks like. Again, just so that way they can start that conversation at home. Having even inviting, I would always invite Purdue. I'm going to use Purdue in a lot of different examples moving forward, but I would always invite Purdue to everything at the elementary level because we wanted a lot of our families are first gen, so we wanted them to start having a conversation of what this could look like. And it wasn't just Purdue was a 4-year example, but we always invited Ivy Tech to the table as well. They had a lot of CTE programs. They also had programs that would benefit our families, like if they wanted to go to school as well. So it really helped us as a school counseling department get buy-in from the community when they knew that we would have these speakers coming in and talking to them about, what college could look like, preparing the student early. It did help the families feel just a part. It helped improve the culture in the building. Um, so that's at the elementary level, and again, that's an example of tier 1 where you're there, it's for all students, but again, in elementary, it's gonna be a lot of just exploration, right? In middle, it gets a little bit fine-tuned, right? So you're building on what you started in elementary. So for elementary, we're giving them this, college exploration, just different opportunities to dream and think, big. Then in middle, we don't wanna close down those dreams, but we also wanna build on it, right? So it's still, talking to families, still that culture and climate, because we wanna make sure, again, that families are aware of opportunities. I know 21st Century Scholars now is auto enroll, but it doesn't make sense if it's auto enroll if we're not talking to families early on and students early on about what that could look like. Because yes, it could be early, it could be auto enrollment, but if we're not having those conversations, then our students aren't going to feel that they can go to school, right? So we want to start making sure that we have those conversations with students in middle school, connecting academics to career, like, okay, you're interested in this, how does that link? And really being intentional with that, with our individual student planning, with our 5-year plan, 6-year plans, making sure that yes, we can go on Indiana Career Explorer, but we also wanna make sure that, okay, so if they're on it, these are the things that they're interested in, and how can we match that, um, with possibly the outside speaker or career speaker series, which I'll speak on in a minute. We can go to the next slide. That NOSCA's, middle school counselor's guide, like, which just has resources on it that you can click on as well, and it has the elementary one as well, so you can take a look at that too. I know we're a little busy, so it's hard to just but in the summer, if you have all this time. So, when I speak on something, it's a lot more comfortable for me if I'm able to actually show how it looked. So I'll have some pictures in a second, but Purdue was really gracious enough to do this is at the elementary level. You can click on it, Amanda. Um, we were really intentional. We are building this vertical alignment when it came to Purdue, and basically when it came to um, collaborating with outside people. Because as a school counselor, like that's a lot for you to do by yourself, right? Okay, let's build this whole entire thing. How do I do that? In what scope does that make sense for me to be able to do? But we have a lot of local universities all across the state who are willing to come in and have outreach individuals. You talk to their academics. So this individual at Purdue, I did not create this, Purdue created this. She was able to go into all of our fifth and sixth grade classes across the district. We had at that point 12 elementary schools. So she went to every single um, fifth and sixth because we had sixth grade in elementary in Hammond. So she went into all of those classes and she spoke. She made arrangements. So I, as a coordinator, I made the arrangement like with the building principal, and she made arrangements in the buildings to actually go in. She would meet with all of the sixth grade teachers, and then she would do presentations about what college looked like. And so this is all part of College Go Week. And this is Christina Maldonado, actually from Purdue, actually created it. And so she would start doing a presentation about college, and she actually had like a Kahoot, and she did things. And this was again just giving students the opportunity to take a look at aligning it with College Go Week and bringing in like Purdue swag and things like that. Just so again, a lot of our students are going to be first gen, so they can be aware of that, right? And this is at the elementary level. So this was done at every school in the through all of our schools. Um, and then we topped that off with a field trip. So all of our sixth grade students across the district went to visit Purdue, but they didn't just, it was very intentional. So it was very intentional. That's why I'm saying that we built on it because we kind of extended that into the middle school. But the sixth grade started, so every sixth grader in the district had the opportunity to go to the campus. And the campus, they met with admissions, they met with Trio, but they would do a campus tour. But it was they would talk to them about like what a GPA was, so helping prepare them for high school. So this not only helped the elementary counselors, right, having those conversations, but it also helped the middle school counselors because when they were coming into seventh grade, they were already aware of what a GPA was. They're already aware of what FAFSA was. Like they were already, they were already thinking about that. So just again, that exploration in elementary, giving them the opportunity to think and dream. Um, and you can go back. Okay. So just different things that you could do in elementary would be intentional with that, like virtual college tours, adopt a college, career dress up day, and even just what be very mindful when we're doing dress up days because a lot of times we're realizing a lot of students might not have like college swag. They might not have that at home. So just being mindful when we're doing that, or possibly have the opportunity if a school were to donate like t-shirts or something like that to help. But just make it fun, a career fair. ASCA has career conversations. And so I just became aware of those recently. Like I think I just became aware of them, I want to say 2 years ago. Um, but just and they have them for elementary, middle, and high. So it has the Ask a Mindset on it, and it has conversation starters for family, community partners, and students. So sometimes it's hard, like we don't know where to start, right? We don't know where to get started. So it's good just to kind of take a look at these, and maybe these are questions that you could use for students, questions you could use for family, especially for family engagement, community partners, but it's always tying them back to the Ask Our Mindsets and behaviors. So that way, again, when we're building our program, we know that it's aligned to our national standards. And you can go to the next slide. Um, so these are just some of the examples from the elementary. Franklin Elementary ended up doing as part of so they students all through sixth grade in Hammond visited the campus at Purdue, and then Franklin had a college and career expo. So we had different people from, so we had like the military there. And they did a really great job of um, working with the community and bringing just different individuals in, being mindful of not just bringing in four-year professionals or making sure that we did that, but also making sure that we brought in people who were police officers or firemen or just so that way students again had that opportunity to just dream, right? And so those are some pictures of them at the career fair. The person reading in the middle, again, partnering with Purdue, we partnered with their athletic department. Their athletic department was phenomenal. Um, we wanted students to see themselves in these spaces. So we invited college athletes to come into our elementary schools and they would talk about like what their major was, how they became interested in the major. Student athletes have volunteer hours they have to meet, right? A lot of and sometimes we forget about that. A lot of college organizations have like student organizations, they have volunteer hours that they have to meet. The Honors College at Purdue Northwest has been phenomenal working with Hammond about mentors and tutors, just being intentional about working and they want to work within the community, right? So just saying, hey, you know what? You have volunteer hours. We have students for you to volunteer and they were great. And so that's what we were able to do at the elementary. Also, again, building part of that vertical alignment is really again we're talking to students. We wanted to ensure that we were growing our early college department or our early college school, and we saw the need in high school. We were enrolling students for dual credit courses at the end of eighth grade, but we wanted to make sure we started earlier and just letting them know and trying to change that culture, try to build that college going culture. So we had like students as part of this college and career expo. We had middle school counselors there, and we had high school counselors there talking to them about like what does the school counselor do? These are some of the things that we'll be doing next year, but also talking to them about early college, so that way they again they could see themselves in those spaces. So like we had like a huge, and it was like signed by all the students who walked by that they were an early college student. So those are the signatures of the elementary students as they walk by. And so middle school, you're just adding on that, right? So if they started exploring in elementary, then in middle, we're gonna do a little bit more of the exploration. We know College Go Week is coming up. CTE month just passed, so making sure that at that point we're doing those interest inventory assessments with students. We're finding out what they're interested in. We're building on it a little bit more where they're actually going maybe not just to Purdue, but they're going to Ivy Tech. We're partnering with Purdue West Lafayette to see if we could have students go there, if we can get a scholarship to pay for our students to go there, being intentional with the college and career lessons. And then the link to the College Go Week is just a link to College Go Week, but the virtual tours, I did that during COVID, but it's a good way just to kind of put that in your class, it's your Google Classroom, so I would have links, so that was my COVID my COVID, Bitmoji classroom, and I know we all use them at that point, but it's still a good way for us to kinda go back and just throw it into a student's Google Classroom, like, "Hey, you know what? I'm not able to go in this week, but I just wanna make sure that you're aware, like, this" and it had, like, a link to Purdue, and it had, like, a virtual link to Purdue, like, and information about, like, Trio and just, like, activities they could do on Big Future. So, again, just making sure that we're intentional about the time that we have with students. If we're not able to go directly into the classrooms, um, being able to just provide them with resources, information, just so again it becomes part of the culture. Go ahead, you can go. You're fine. You can go. Next slide, slide. And so I actually see Roz is on this call. So Roz, I didn't know she was going to be on here. I don't know if she could hear me right now, but she's actually the director of junior achievement. I actually am speaking of junior achievement in a second, so it's kind of interesting that she's on the call. I didn't know she was going to be on the call, but so we're partnering community partners are a really huge part of why we're able to do that as school counselors, and I cannot stress enough, like, you don't have to do this by yourself. Like, there's so many people who are able to help. Oh, I can hear you. Okay, hey, Ron, I'm gonna talk about you in a second. Okay, so so I cannot stress, the importance of community partners in this work. I can't stress it enough. Ron has been phenomenal, with Junior Achievement, and so what Junior Achievement did, in elementary, they started having and we always when I think about junior achievement, I always think about the kids in elementary, but I didn't think about it in middle and I didn't think about it in high school. Um, but thankfully, I met with Ross and her team and found out, hey, you know what? It looks different and we could scaffold it, right? It looks different in middle. And so we Junior Achievement was gracious enough to provide us with it. This is when Career Explorer was kind of also like in flux. Um, they provided us with an interest survey, and, so they provided us with the survey, and then we did a career speaker series with them at the middle school, but then also we had, career speakers, come in, and so those are some of the pictures of the career speakers with Junior Achievement, but it was really intentional, the work that was done, because it wasn't just bringing in speakers, it was bringing in speakers that matched, the interests of the students. So that's why I loved, Lindsay actually created this uh, flyer, but it was like we listened. So like they took the interest inventory assessment, and we were intentional with the speakers that were brought in were representatives of like the careers that our seventh and eighth grade student, or this was eighth grade, our eighth grade students indicated they were interested in. So it wasn't just them doing that, and it wasn't just random speakers. So then the students were like really, yes, they're going to be interested when people come in and they can go to the gym and they could talk to different individuals, but it rang a little bit better, right? We got a lot more buy-in from them when they were actually able to see people who "Oh, okay, I'm interested in this," and here they are, right? So just being intentional with that work. The picture at the top in the school building is working with our high school counselor. So the high school counselor would come into the middle school and talk to them about early college, talk to them about what that looked like. Building on, so like the eighth grade counselor would do a lesson on high school, but then it would culminate with the high school counselor coming in, or would it culminate there? The high school counselor would come in and talk to them about what that would look like, and then the students would then go visit the high school. So it wasn't just a one and done, it was just building on it. Um, so just again, being intentional with that work. Yeah, and I think that's just visits to Purdue and other schools that they did as well. Ivy Tech. Next slide. And so you want to make sure that for tier one college and career readiness, that it's every student, every student throughout the district or throughout the building. When it's high school, it looks a little bit different than it would in elementary and middle, where the core curriculum is going to be fast. So it's going to be scholarships. That's going to be part of that core curriculum. The individual student planning, like yes, the students start their individual student planning. They're starting in sixth grade, but it's being intentional, like revisiting it, right? And then once you're giving them these opportunities to see these opportunities that they have, right? At either colleges, universities, trade schools, then making sure that you're revisiting those individual student plans, um, and ensuring that, that if the students' direction is changing, that we're meeting them where they're at. And then also participating in school-wide events, again, bringing in representatives to school event to be a part of, we're working with the school counselors, the career speaker series I put on there because that was school-wide, again, throughout the entire building, every student received that. Or if they weren't there, then they were recorded. So then the teacher would be able to play them on the next time, or we would pull them. We'd be intentional about pulling those students as well. So again, just working together with your teachers and community partners. And then these are again just examples for high school. Decision day, I think it's important. Just a couple, I'll just kind of throw out a little bit more with the career discovery meetings. Again, partnering. I know a lot of people are partnering with different entities, so making sure that we're intentional with that. Early college go week is actually coming up, I think, in a week or two. I know Cell has like a toolkit, and it's an early college toolkit. But even if you're not in early college school, it's good just to kind of have that information to pass on to students. Um, yeah, I think they have a toolkit. If you go down to the bottom, Amanda, it has a little toolkit. hmm So it's really just good information just to provide to students, right? Just again, talking about what early college could look like, dual credit, workshops. And that's just a webinar from, yeah. But just the dual credit workshops, talking to students, talking to families about what that looks like. Um, Again, you're just building. So virtual alignment is really building, right? So we started off in elementary, we're giving them all this exploration. We're kind of aligning it more to their interests in middle school and then high school. We're still making sure that we're doing that, but then also letting them know like what that future would look like and how they could best prepare for it. I didn't have a trio on here, but I think like especially first gen students, it's important to talk to like trio programs because they can come out as well to talk about what college looks like. You're looking at like those 21st century scholars, how 80% of them are going to school. Those wraparound services are essential when it comes to first gen students. And so again, Pictures Career Day, again, Junior Achievement has been a phenomenal partner with Hammond. Also, the Ivy Tech, just being intentional, we would have FAFSA nights, we'd always ensure like 50% of our population was Latino. So we want to make sure that we were intentional about having um, somebody who spoke Spanish as well. So Ivy Tech always would have somebody who would present to families in English and present somebody to families in Spanish. Um, if that weren't the case, I would also a really great partner in the work that I was doing at the building, and this is before I was a district, um, was working with our LDP department. Our LDP department are the families who are speaking a different language, they have a really great connection with the families. So they would reach out to families and say, okay, the counselors are hosting this. I'm going to help support this. And so she would come to our events and she would talk to students and families in Spanish as well. I mean, I speak Spanish as well, but she was really also helping support that and really get that buy-in from families. So again, those are just, their career fairs and just examples of them. Just and the bottom left is Indiana Latino Institute, another organization that does do a lot of work throughout the state. So again, partnering with these entities makes everything else kind of, I'm not going to say seamless because it's still a lot getting all these permission slips and getting all this together and making sure discovery meetings and everything else. But it does help, right, in the process. And so because I do not now speak catching results language, right? We want to make sure also that when we're thinking about the college and career domain that we're talking about tier two as well. So It's rare for K-8 to have tier targeted, supports for, those grade levels, but what you wanna be intentional with for that is when you have first generation students, when you have families who've never, like, completed even when it comes to 21st century scholars, when those families who have to complete those, you wanna be intentional about making sure that you're creating supports, for special populations. So other than that, there's usually not that much, college and career for the tier 2 level, but we just wanna make sure, again, when it comes to first generation, ELLs, you want to make sure that you're being intentional about supporting those students, making sure that when students are enrolling in in high school honors courses, that we're giving that information out to families, just making sure that we're intentional about that work. Um, but at the ninth and 12th grade level, it's a lot easier to see when when students are not matching for college, when they're not applying, when there are other issues, and also targeted student groups. So BIPOC, historically underrepresented, homeless, McKinney-Vento students. Again, just making sure that we're intentional about the supports that we're providing. That might look like, partnering with, yes, you could partner with Purdue or Ivy Tech over regular FAFSA nights, but there might be like more targeted supports where you're referring people over there to those campuses or asking them to come here, or why isn't the student applying for college? That does help though when we're starting to have these conversations with them early, when we're having those conversations in elementary and middle, because that way you've already established a relationship with the family, you're already aware of the student wanting to go to school. And then again, just making those connections for families is a lot of that work at that tier 2 level. And then 3 is gonna be rare. It's gonna be just a couple of your students, where they might have situations like a lot of our families at Hammond had complex FAFSA scenarios. A lot had them. So we would be intentional about working with the financial aid department at Purdue, inviting them over. They had somebody who would always speak Spanish when they would come, just making sure that situations were comfortable for families. They felt safe, secure, and able just to kind of have conversations about what the needs were that they had. Um, but then just again, making sure that we're still supporting students. So if they're dropping out after the first semester, I know that they're not technically our students, or they're enrolling, but they're dropping out. But there are possibly supports because you already have that built-in relationship with them, supports that you could help. They might not feel comfortable talking to a college admissions. They might not feel comfortable. They might not be aware of what financial aid looks like. They might not have known that they had to answer some feedback on a form to qualify. So again, technically not your role, but still part of just doing what's best for students. And that doesn't happen too often, but we want to make sure that that we're able to support when we have the opportunity to do so. Yeah. Where are we at? Where am I at on time? Okay, so this is actually the example. I love this, and this is actually my boss actually created this, Terry Trzynski. Um, So we're thinking about like vertical alignment. We're thinking about K-12. Like, what does that mean, and what does that look like in elementary, middle, and high? And I just like the diagram. I think when you go, I think if you go next, it should have like a little arrow or something, does it? Mm. And you can go all the way through it without, yeah. So remember in the beginning when I first started my conversation, I was talking about the priorities, the school priorities. So if you have your SMART goal as school counselor, you're building your SMART goal, you're creating this, and it says by June 2025, the number of seniors completing a CTE pathway will increase by 10% from 55 to 60. So that's your SMART goal. So as school counselor, we're building these comprehensive programs, we're creating these SMART goals. That SMART goal is my SMART goal as a school counselor, but it's also a part of my 5-year strategic plan, right? It's a part of my district priorities. It's a part of what my principal is being held accountable for at the end of the year. So he wants to see these increases, and I want to see them because they're part of my SMART goal. So I'm going to have buy-in from my principal because this is going to make him look good, right? If we can meet this number. Obviously, they want to do what's best for students. Not saying principals don't want to do that, but it's also going to help, right? It's also going to help him when he has to step in front of the board and say, this is what I've done. It's very powerful as somebody who's witnessed their principal speak on my principal has spoken on my behalf before, like when he was talking about his priorities and said our school counselors help with X, Y, and Z. Like that is so powerful. You can get so much buy-in from that. So please, when I'm talking about really aligning your goals, it's really important to be intentional with that. Um, but when you're looking at this, you're looking at like, what does this look like? What does an elementary school counselor like? How can elementary school counselor move that needle? Or how can a middle school counselor move that needle? If we're thinking about vertical alignment and we're intentional with the work that we're doing, yes, we can move it because we're starting in at K-5. We're starting to have these STEM career days. We're starting to have these workplace visits. We're starting to do that, and we're introducing students to non-traditional careers early. And then again in 6th to 8th grade, we're building on that. So now they're going to non-traditional career fairs. Now we have these, we're introducing the 17 career clusters and we're doing these interest inventory assessments. We're aligning them with their goals. Again, being more intentional. And then in 9th through 12th, even more intentional with that, where we're helping them with internships, helping them just celebrating career day, celebrating CTE pathway, celebrating military. So again, just being intentional with that, starting at the elementary level, building on that will help. Without you being the college and career counselor specifically, and yes, that's definitely going to be a priority for you as in that role. But if you're an elementary school counselor and you're seeing that this is a district priority, you can help, and you can let your principal know, hey, you know what, that's a district priority. But as a elementary school counselor, let them know this is what I'm doing, and they'll do that because again, it's all really, I hope in my heart, it would be doing what's best for students, but again, just letting people know, letting others know, because sometimes school counselors, like, we work in silos and we just kinda do the work, and really without letting other people know that we're doing the work, we do a lot, like, we're doing vertical alignment, we just, might not have it named that way, or we might not be intentional about, like, working with other counselors in the district. If you can get one thing from this call, um, please work with well, two things. One would be aligning your goals to your building, right? Second would be contact your elementary school counselor, contact your middle school counselor, contact the high school counselor, like work together to figure out what the needs are, what the gaps are between the grade levels, and how you could each support it and build it. And that's what vertical alignment is going to be. Next slide. So mentioned those earlier, and I know we're not going to have time to go through all of them, but I want to make sure that you have, like, if you're at the district, then make sure that you have them for all three. But if you're elementary, middle, or high, just how are we starting these career conversations early on? So you can just go ahead and have that. And again, that's not from Lydia McNeely, that's from ASCA. So they provide that. That is a free resource that they provide to all, whether you're a member or not. So just want you, I love them. Like, I would print them out and have them, like, they're really great resources. They're new. Sometimes the resources aren't necessarily the newest, but I mean, I'm not saying they're new like this year, but like they're relatively new, right? And so they look appealing when I just like having There, next slide. And maybe the third thing would be not to do it yourself. Because I was gonna do it yourself in my Bitmoji because I work for Hatching Results, so that's a do it yourself emoji, but not to do it yourself, right? Really work with your colleagues, really work with higher ed partners, community members, and outside agencies. And so the next slide is Roz, I had to give you like I was thinking about junior achievement without knowing you were on the call, but I love the way they did this, where they were doing a presentation and they talked about vertical alignment again without, but working in elementary school, what was in elementary school, how we built upon it, worked together, did that in middle school, and how again scaffolded and did the work in high school, and they have examples there. But again, just being very intentional with the work, and collaborating. I know with discovery meetings, I know with just so many things that are on school council create new graduation requirements, like how are we going to meet this and how are we going to do all of the things. Um, you do not have to do the things by yourself. Please make sure that you're reaching out to other organizations. A lot of times the organizations want somebody to reach out to them. They just don't know who. Like, be that person. Like the way we were at Purdue, I was like, you have hours, you have students who need hours. We have students, right, who need mentoring. Um, so please make sure that you're reaching out to these organizations and are more than happy to help. Next slide. I think, 'cause I'm almost at time. Remember, and also remember, it's important to begin. You're already doing a lot of this work. It's just naming it and kind of just being more intentional with who you're partnering with, so it's not you doing all the things all at once. Um, Allow yourself grace. Comprehensive school counseling takes time. Even, I ramped our middle school. I was part of ramping our two high schools in Hammond. Uh, Comprehensive counseling is a labor of love. I know it's difficult at times, right? And it's frustrating at times if you're not getting the buy-in, but a comprehensive school counseling program takes 3 to 5 years to build. And even when we were a ramp school, we still had to build on it, right? So it's just about allowing yourself grace and taking it step by step and doing the work. Um, and also, again, my making sure that we're doing what's best for students, right? And we're giving them an opportunity to see all of these. Again, this was just a college and career example, but certainly when we're talking about academics, when we're talking about social emotional learning and school counselors working in all of these domains. So just working it, I would always like, I was a college and career counselor, not in name, right? When I was in the building, but that was my jam. Um, and my co-counselor was the one who loved like the small groups and could really was more into like the mental health, like she had that background. So really like looking with one another, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if you're working at a district, you're working with your district and you're building on something, like you all don't have to do all the things, but just really okay, I could do the college and career lesson, you could do this lesson, you could do this lesson. So just really working together, so that way it's less stress on everybody involved. And I think that's it. Okay. So please don't hesitate. I know I might have put that in the chat, but like reach out to me. I'm at lydia@hatchingresults.com. Is the easiest one. I have other emails, but I think that's just easy to remember. But if you just please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lydia. You did amazing work while you were at Hammond. So I'm glad that you're now able to kind of share some of that, pass it on to other counselors in the state and obviously beyond. So thank you. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to add to the chat as we kind of wrap things up for today. I'm going to close us out. Here is a link if you have access to those slides, which you should. Have that, go ahead and click on the evaluation link if you want to receive a PGP point for your participation today. And then we also have some upcoming events yet this spring before the school year ends. We are continuing our new diploma series. This Thursday, we will be talking about employment readiness. And then I believe April 30th, we are having a webinar on enlistment. So if you have been a part of that webinar series and want to continue that, registration for both of those are posted. And then we have some other events happening yet this month and then in May. So if you want to learn more, you can click on those links to register. Also wanted to mention, Keep Indiana Learning has a summer conference in June. Registration is only $99. It will take place in Noblesville. So if you are close to the area, or even if you want to travel a little bit to join us, there will be counselors there, and there will be a counselor-specific strand if you want to check that out. Finally, some resources and my contact information. So looking at the chat, again, I'm not seeing any information. So thank you, Lydia, again, for your time and sharing your great work. And otherwise, we will see everyone soon. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lydia. This is Roz. That was great.
I love